I read a lot of books last month. Welcome back to Madison's Books. I'm Madison, and today I will be doing my June 2019 wrap-up. I know it's a little late. I've been really busy these past few weeks with vacation and being away from home, and now I'm finally able to sit down and talk about all the books that I read last month. I have some statistics. So I read 10 books. I had 3 4 out of 5 star books. I also had 7 5 out of 5 star books. So I had a pretty great book month for books that interested me. I'm also doing this program with my library where there's an app that you download and you basically track your reading. You can start a reading session whenever you want. You can log a past reading session and it calculates your reading speed per page and your average reading speed per hour and everything that you'd want to know about your reading. I started doing that in June, and that was through my library for the summer reading competition. Through that app, I found out that I read 52 hours in 4 minutes. That's a lot of reading in just 1 month. Like I said before, the app shows you your reading speed per page, and so I started the month out on June 1st with reading a page every 1 minute and 17 seconds, but then on the last day of the month, I ended up reading a page in 52 seconds. So I increased my reading speed by a lot just by reading books every single day. Going on to the books that I read in the month of June, the first book that I read was Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. And this book is the second book in the Red Queen series, and the entire series is basically about this conflict between the red blood and silver blood citizens of this country. So the silver blood citizens, they're the monarchs, and they're all the queens and kings and everything. All the red blood people, they're peasants and they're living in very harsh conditions. They're enslaved by the silver blood government and monarchy. The silver blooded people, they have special powers. They can have fire controlling abilities, water, metals, earth, even plants. And so they have all these special abilities that red-blooded citizens don't have. And so they're seen as higher, or they're seen as more important than the red-blooded citizens. The entire series takes off in Red Queen, where this girl, Mare, she is red-blooded and she somehow ends up in the Silverblood Palace pretending to be a silver monarch. The whole story takes off from there and it's very interesting. I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who haven't read this series yet, but it's so good and I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorite series of all time. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars, which I really liked it. I liked the plot and everything, but didn't have that last punch to make it go up to that 5-star read. But it was still really good. I highly recommend this book and the whole series. The second book that I read in June was The Hunger Games. This was a reread for me. I normally like to listen to audiobooks of books that I've already read when I go on runs or work out, and so this was one of the books that I listened to on audiobook. Of course, I love The Hunger Games. It was one of the first book series that I read that really got me into reading and the dystopia genre. The Hunger Games is basically about this country named Panem, and every single year they have this game, and it's called The Hunger Games, where 2 tributes from every district, there are 12 districts in Panem, are chosen to participate in the Hunger Games. And the Hunger Games is basically a fight to the death where only one person can remain. A total of 24 kids are chosen, but only one survives every year. The main character, her sister gets chosen to go to the Hunger Games. She volunteers as tribute for her, so the main character, Katniss, goes instead with this boy, Peeta. And together they try and survive the Hunger Games together. I obviously gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars because nothing is better than the first Hunger Games book. I just absolutely love it so much. The writing is so good. I just absolutely love it. The third book that I read in June was King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. This is the third book in the Red Queen series, and it continues the story of Mare and Cal and Maven and all of the red and silver bloods fighting and gaining independence for their country. Again, there isn't that much that I can say about this without spoiling anything, and there's even more action, even more death, even more fighting and discovering powers and new bloods in everything in this world, and it's so interesting. Like with Glass Sword, I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars just because, I had a couple problems with it, but I still liked it so much, so I decided to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. The fourth book I read in June was Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard. This is the fourth book in in the Red Queen series, this is also the final book. I just loved it so much. It was so good. The action was amazing. The different perspectives in the story was also amazing. I loved just reading from the perspective of so many of these different people. And this was definitely one of the best finales to a series that I've ever read. It was amazing, and overall it was just an amazing read. You should definitely read it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars just because Warstorm was the best book in the series. Even though it was the longest, every single page was worth it. So these next 2 books are part of the same series as before. They're part of the Red Queen series, but they're the 2 novellas that come with the bind-up of Cruel Crown. So the 2 stories are Steel Scars and Queen Song, and I both gave those books a 5 out of 5 star rating. It was so fun just going back into the world after I finished reading the entire series and just reading from the perspective of these characters before all the events of the story happened. The 6th book that I read in June was Broken Throne by Victoria Aveyard. It's kind of an add-on to the Red Queen series. It happens after all the events in Warstorm. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It gave me everything that I wanted. Once again, it brought me back to the universe, and it was so good. The 7th book I read in June was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was so good. I loved it so much. I know I'm saying that I love all of these books that I read in this month. I guess I just chose a lot of books that I ended up liking, and Daisy Jones and the Six, it's not the type of book that I would normally read. I knew before going into the book that everyone loved it, or most of the reviews that I read and watched, they were praising the book for how good it was and how different it was. And so I decided to read it just to see if it lived up to the craze. And of course it did. It's an amazing read. And for anyone that doesn't know what it's about this band, Daisy Jones and the Six, and no one knows why they broke up at the height of their career. And this book is told through a series of interviews where the interviewer interviews everyone in the band to get their own perspective of why the band broke up and how they formed and how they wrote all their songs. I actually felt like the band was real, and I wanted to listen to their songs because they all felt so amazing. This book was amazing. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's so good, and it was written perfectly. The 9th book that I read in June was Memento by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I actually have it here. This is one of the 2 books that I read this month that I still have, and normally I don't buy my books. I get them from the library, so I have to return them once I finish reading them, but this I actually own because it was sent to me from a giveaway. Not really a giveaway, but I talked about it in my Memento review video. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and if you want to see all my thoughts about this book, you can go to my previous video where I talk in depth about the Illuminae universe and what this book is about and all my thoughts about it. The last book that I read in June, the 10th book that I read last month. I can't believe I read 10 books. This is insane. It is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Oh my gosh. I've been wanting to read the Shadowhunter Chronicles for such a long time. Ever since I started watching booktube videos, everyone was talking about how they love this series. I just wanted to understand what the craze was about, and so I ended up picking up City of Bones from my library, and I started reading it. For those of you who don't know what this is about, this entire series is about demon hunting, demon killing, and the shadow hunters and mundanes. I really like this book, but it wasn't good enough for 5 out of 5 stars, so I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars just because it was really good. It was good entertainment for the time when I was reading it. It was a great beginning to a series. So that's all the books that I read in the month of June in 2019. I know it's been a long time since I've posted anything, but I really want to make a review of the first 3 books in the Shadowhunter Chronicles, or in the Mortal Instruments series, just talking about my ideas of how the first 3 books were and everything. And so that's kind of my plan moving forward. I can't wait to make more videos, so see you next time.